Hello and welcome to the I Wish I Started Sooner podcast. Thank you again for joining me. This is episode 3, and today is the first episode where I do an interview. So I interview one of my close friends, someone I've known for over 20 years. He's a professional educator. He's been working for the school department for maybe close to 15 years. So without further ado, welcome my guest, DC. All right, and welcome. This is my good friend, goes by DC for today. And welcome to the show. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up?
All right, great. So today we're going to discuss basically the N-word. I wanted to basically ask you, did you ever subscribe to the notion that the N-word was a term of endearment? And if so, do you still feel that way now?
Well, personally, we've known each other over 20 years. And you know, from what you know of me, you know, I've never really subscribed to that word. And using it as an affectionate word. And I know it's not the popular opinion for our culture to say that, but I always have, I feel like it's disrespectful to the older generation to do that. So I never went that route.
So at what point, like, because I remember being younger, and let's say as far back as like 5th grade, I remember just like daydreaming in class, trying to figure out like what this word meant. And like I was shown a lot of the like the slave type movies early on, like Roots and Rosewood, all those type of movies. And it always stuck with me. And I've had family members who would use it. And so I always was like really trying to figure out what the word was, why it hurt so much when it was used, why people like just, they couldn't like agree on anything regarding it. So when I was younger, I'd say around 5th or 6th grade, I heard on, I forget where exactly it was, but I believe it was a stand-up comedian, and I can't remember who it was, but it was the first time I heard anyone describe it as a term of endearment. And they went on to say that when Black people use it, it's because we took the power back from the word and it's our word. But I never really agreed, because if that was the case, and if there was no power in the word, it wouldn't be so offensive when other people use it, which it clearly is. So I remember just being exhausted and just accepting that definition for a long time. And I remember when, I guess, the facade fell apart, because I was driving in the car listening to like maybe Z100 or one of the pop stations. And it was like 2 white guys on the radio talking, and the topic was term of endearments. So when I heard that, I was like, wait, what are these guys talking about? The N-word? Let me turn this radio up, see what they talking about, because I know they ain't got no business talking about it. So once they went into the discussion, they started giving examples of terms of endearment, and I just felt like, oh my God. I felt like I was bamboozled. Like, I can't believe I believed it was a term of endearment this entire time. My mistake was I didn't know what the phrase term of endearment was. I never even looked into it. So I was like, of course, if you were to put the N-word in a list of other term of endearments, it would not match. And you would clearly know that, hey, this is one of these things aren't like the other. So unfortunately, I was well into my adulthood when I came across that radio program.
Yeah.
So I was like, I still see a lot of people on social media, a lot of the younger kids, and they still seem to be holding on to this this notion, like it seems like regurgitated information, like misinformation spread it over multiple generations. You being an educator, how often or what exactly do you see like in your experience with younger generations in the school? Like, are they still using the word?
Man, so that's a lot to digest. Like the fact that, like for me, when hearing the word, I think first time it would have to be in rap music, and I don't even know where we get the education on the word from. Like I don't know who sat down and taught me like this word's not acceptable. But I just knew that if I was to say that word in front of my grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
then there would be some belts being pulled out or some wooden paddles being pulled out, and it would meet my backside at some point.
So that word was considered a full blown curse word, just like the other hard ones.
And I didn't curse. I didn't curse in my house. I didn't drink until I was old enough to make a New Year's resolution to tell my parents I drank. You know, that's how like straight edge I was growing up. So like for me, like it was just out of respect. You know, my grandmother like raised me, and I feel like that's an issue nowadays that kids don't have those values growing up. They don't have their grandparents that close in their lives, or their parents aren't raising them with that value because some of their parents were raised on, you know, listening to rap music, and that word was acceptable to them, and they subscribed to the terms of endearment theory. And so in the school system, yeah, I've run into it where Hispanic kid came into my class looking for someone, and I tried to remove him. I'm like, you gotta go, da da da. And he just nonchalantly said the N-word, blah blah blah, da da da. And I know he didn't mean it in the way that, you know, someone would normally think he meant it. But I made sure I tracked him down and got him suspended for it, because I don't. Growing up, I never allowed that word to slide. So it was handled in different ways when I was younger. So I had to keep my calm and just make sure like he's going to have consequences for that, because I don't accept it. So
earlier you credited rap music to exposing you to the word. See, I have a different experience. I feel like we're basically the same age. So growing up, late 80s, hip hop was still kind of only played on certain radio stations at a certain time. And I feel like the first time I heard the word, it wasn't through rap music, because rap music wasn't that popular at that point. I feel like I've heard it first from my immediate family members, like and then extended family members. Some of my uncles and aunts at barbecues would use it. Maybe my dad or my mom I would have heard it from them, definitely from my brother and sisters. And I feel like certain people used it as like a matter of fact. And as an example, I want to talk about Richard Pryor early on, his stand-ups. I remember not the last one where he basically talked about how he wasn't going to use the word anymore, but like all the other ones, he would use it as like matter of fact. Like if you pointed to a bird, he'd say that's a bird. If you pointed to a tree, he'd say that's a tree. You point to a white guy, he'd say that's a white guy. If you point to a black guy, he'd say that's a nigger. And it was just like, that was the type of mentality of my older generation. Like they heard that word and it was a matter of fact. It wasn't like they were using it because we're trying to change the connotation of the word to make it our own and trying to take the power out. They wasn't using it that way. They was just using it because it's been drilled into their vocabulary. It was just as simple as the color black being associated with, nigger. Mm-hmm. So I do feel like a lot of people do credit hip hop to that, to that extent. Like, I definitely think the music becoming so popular spread it uh, to like far reaches of the planet, basically. But and I think a lot of the younger kids, especially, they got their first dose of it through the music, so it does hit differently to them. Like, or like the Spanish kid you spoke about, they're using it because it's something to be like considered cool. It's a part of their slang or their vocabulary where they don't feel what we feel when we hear it. You know, it kind of stands out, especially when we would go to a movie back in the day, and you didn't expect to hear it from this particular type of movie. Like, it just, I think it was like, I remember, I think you were there. We went to see like The Hangover 3 or something, or 2, and I think the N word was dropped by like the Asian dude, but it was unexpectedly. Other people in the audience was laughing. It was like,
Laughing.
it was kind of like getting stabbed in the side. Like, ah, man, like I didn't show up for that. Like, if I wanted to hear that, I would have went to a different type of movie, you know?
Yeah. So, like you said, like hip hop might not be the origin for most people, but I feel like just for me, that's the first time I can remember because, like I said, like in my house, if you were in my house, like you didn't curse, so just wasn't allowed. Like even my older brother and cousin that I grew up with, but they listened to hip hop
Mm-hmm.
and they listened to rap. So I just remember like hearing it in the music, and then like like we had experiences like from the opposite side of the spectrum, like hearing it from people in like a malicious way, like
You're
that.
referring to the bowling alley incident?
Oh yeah, so like you clear as day in your mind, right? We're on our walk, our weekly walk. You know, me, you, and our other boy, just chilling, hanging out, taking a stroll around town, trying to mind our business, stay out of trouble. Uh, and we get to the bowling alley, and we're just about to hang out outside the bowling alley for a little bit. Right around the corner comes, uh, I think it was two white girls and a white guy, and I think one of the girls said something nigger.
I remember exactly what she said. It was like, it may have been 2 guys,
No, it was
maybe
one
3
guy because I
girls.
remember how scared he looked. I remember how
Was it
scared he
just the
looked
one?
because it was just it was one guy and two girls. I
Okay.
remember that for like 100%. I
I
don't
thought,
remember exactly what she said, but I
well,
remember the look on his face when he looked up and saw three black guys after she just said the N word.
what she said was, and we couldn't see her until she came around the corner, but we could hear what the sentence, how it began. What she said was, I'm bored. Let's go find and fuck up some niggers. And when she walked around the corner is when she hit the N word, like, and saw 3 black dudes walking directly like 5 feet away from them. And so she kind of like choked up on the last couple of words, and like they all like kind
Yeah.
of hung
See,
their
I didn't.
heads.
I just heard I zoned in on the N word.
Mm-hmm.
So like the beginning part didn't matter. So yeah, I just remember how that felt. I'm like, man, we don't do anything like we don't mess with anyone.
And think about
And
it this
people
way.
just think it's okay to walk around and just say that type of stuff. That like hit a different way.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember being really frustrated that particular night because I felt like we had a responsibility to like be violent and like check them right there. But also, we kind of instinctually knew like we'll be the ones to get arrested tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No.
it wouldn't
We
even
have
matter.
to have a higher standard. You know, we got to hold ourselves to a higher standard than
Yeah.
everybody else.
And I just thought, like, in this moment, because I didn't really remember what she said until you brought it up. I remember another incident with the same guy, but he was walking home alone, and he said he was chased by 2 white guys screaming the N word at him. So I wonder if we were, let's say, any particular day, it was just one of us walking around that corner, it might have looked differently. The outcome could have been different for that person, you know, whether it was me, you, or V, you
Yeah.
know. But I think it's because we were 3 strong that night, it went differently.
yeah. That's definitely because I can talk from personal experience. Like that word set me off something else. Like I had anger issues when I was younger.
Earlier, you
So
also mentioned that in your household, it was considered a curse word, just like the other curse words, and it was forbidden.
yeah,
Um, do you remember a time? I'm not sure, um, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, but I believe BET used to play the same hood movies over and over again. And I remember they would blurt out all the curse words except the N word.
mm,
And I felt like, man, they're kind of like saying that this is okay to like say of all the
yeah,
things that's happening in this conversation, this word is okay. They letting that fly. And I feel like we don't have like, it's not a secret. Like BT is open for anybody to watch. And I feel like people may come across it who's not of the culture and see it and think, but they might just get the wrong idea and think, okay, this is okay to say because everything else is clearly bleeped out.
yeah. Well, I saw a clip on YouTube. I don't know the guy's name, and he was giving like a TED talk. I don't think it was a TED talk, but he was giving a speech, and he was talking about the music business and how he let. I don't know if he represented artists or he knew people who represented the artists, and you know everything was all right. Like, all right, you want to talk about shooting up people and N-word this and these that. We got a place for you here. We want to play that record. We want to do that. And as soon as it was like a song that was talking about uplifting and the community or doing something, it's like, nah,
Hmm.
I don't think people want to hear that. And
Mm.
they were using our own music as a tool to um, kind of control like our own people and say like, yeah, that's how we want you to behave. We're going to glorify this behavior because we want you to behave that way so we can vilify you.
Yes.
So like, and when I heard, I was like, man, that's so messed up. And it's so real, and people don't to this day don't see that they're using us against ourselves, and we spend more time arguing with each other about someone being too light skinned or too dark skinned or someone uh, being not not black enough or whatever. Like we argue with each other too much, and we don't ever come together to fight for each other.
Yeah.
So that we've kind of been divided within our own race. So the more divided we are, the more ways they can find to divide us, the weaker we are. So like that's kind of how I look at it, like with the music industry, like they use our own words against us.
Yeah. I definitely think the division, I think, is by design. And I think the whole old phrase, like, if it's not, you know, broken, don't fix it. Like, I think people who have conquered and colonized, they've done it with the aid of a people that's already been divided. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like, and this is one of the things I've been kind of, I don't know if I would say struggling with, but definitely there's some turmoil because this last couple of years I've been thinking about visiting Africa and just trying to like, I wouldn't say reconnect. I just wanted to like see it.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I learn about it, the more I feel a little off about it because growing up, I kind of had the notion that white people snuck into Africa and stole our ancestors in the dead of night and brought us across the ocean. And then that's the beginning of the slave era. But that wasn't the case. We wasn't stolen so much as we were sold by other tribes. So
Mm-hmm.
that division of the different tribes is what was a tool for colonizers to conquer the entire continent. So that's why like how you say that like the division within our own race, it serves the same purpose. As long as we are divided and we're fighting amongst ourselves, we'll never be united in one single thought. It works. It works well with politics as well. Like they divide the parties into two major groups, and then they further divide those parties amongst themselves. And as
Yeah.
long as they keep the division going, nobody's really making any moves.
Yeah, definitely. I just remember, you've always been like real forward thinking. I know we've had this discussion recently. Just like how back in high school, like you're the, for those of you who just getting to know Mr. Michael Paylor, those of you getting to know him, back in high school, if you told this man he was not doing something, he was definitely doing it.
Yeah, I think that was
No
a
matter
weakness.
what it was. No. It was just, to me, it was a bold strength, because like it just showed like your conviction and what you believe, that you were willing to go the extra mile to like prove your point. And the one that sticks out to me was your tattoo. And I know like you had like buyer's remorse like years later.
Yeah, but I get that with all tattoos. It's
but no. Well, but this one in particular, I know like when after you got it, you had like some buyer's remorse. But we were talking about, are you African American or are you black? And that's this whole conversation. And I'm like, I don't even think about stuff like that. And we were all like talking like in high school, juniors and seniors. I don't even remember what grade I was in. And we're like, I'm like African American. And he's like, what do you know about Africa? Like, where you ever been at? And I'm like, I never thought about it. And he's like, you know what tribe you're from? Do you know where you're from? And I'm like, no, I don't. And you were like, I'm 100% pure black. Yes. And then it took till a few years ago, I'm like thinking about it, and I'm like, man, I was watching something, and we're the only, like, we're more American
than anybody else.
Black Americans are more American than anybody except Native Americans.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we don't have any culture past America. We don't have any knowledge of our history past America. So for you to say go back to our country, I'm like, this is our country.
Yes.
Like that's how, like, it didn't make sense to me until like a few years ago. Like, and you knew this back in high school, and you had the conviction to put it on your wrist. And so, like, that always stands out to me, like, about you as one of the things, like, that I look up to you about. I'm like, man, he was thinking about things that, you know, grown men don't think about. He was thinking about back when he was 16, 17 years old.
Yeah.
And it opened my eyes to it. Like, I'm like, we need more people to think about things like that. Because it hit me when I was looking into my ancestry, my heritage and ancestry, and you get to like this one picture of like this one person in the lineage, and it says this is the end of the road. Like, to anyone that hits that picture, it's like someone put it up like this is as far as it goes. And that was devastating to me. I was like, this is so frustrating.
Yeah, but also
my whole heritage was stolen.
That was also by design. I feel like without saying it or writing it, they made our let's say the people that wrote the laws with slavery and practiced the whether or not Willie Lynch was a real person, they definitely had a theory about it and a practice. I think the practice of moving the slaves from one plantation to the other and breaking up families, and like, you can't trace back your lineages. Like, if you wanted to, you can't. So how can you ever effectively give reparations when we don't know who has been here longer or for how long? Like, it's all just up in the air.
Yeah.
So, and to speak on something you mentioned earlier, I remember, the part where you said, when some people say go back to your country, and it's like, this is our country. I felt that way, But I really felt that way recently, like maybe a few months ago at my old job. I was in a break room and there was some activity from Donald Trump and his base, and they were getting like really riled up and violent. And I looked over to him, and he's a guy who's, you know, born from Africa. And I was like, man, listen, these white people, they're getting crazy. I hope you got your bulletproof vest or something, because we might have to defend ourselves. And he was like, man, if they get crazy, I'll just go back to my country. Like, it ain't even that serious. And then I was like, motherfucker. And then I realized, I was like,
you're like, yeah, I am stuck here.
Yes, there is no go back to Africa to me. Like, I've never been. That's like a fish drowning in the ocean. Like,
and where you gonna go? What tribe?
where you gonna go? This is
And
it. And I think
they don't want us there, because you know why? Because they got their own problems and we ain't been through their struggles.
Yep, they got their own. And let me speak to that. Years and years ago, a similar situation. There was also an African guy I was working with, and this was like overnight at Target, and he was using the N-word. All right. And I just wanted to test it. I was like still young. I was like in my early 20s, maybe 19 still. And I was like, hey, man, do they use that word where you're from? He was like, not really. I was like, all right, cool. Quick question. Do you know who Martin Luther King is? And he was like, no. And somebody else was standing there, another coworker, I think his name was Jesus. And he was upset at the fact that he didn't know who Martin Luther King was, but I wasn't. I was like, look, he don't know because he wasn't born here. He didn't grow up here. They got their own heroes and like civil rights leaders that we have no idea about.
Desmond Tutu and Nelson Mandela.
But that's South Africa. I don't even know.
Yeah.
Like, he might have been from Ghana, and that's a whole different country. And I'm like, it's sad that he came over and adapted like our bad habits as well, because I think that's what the N-word is. It's unfortunate that we still do it, but it's like smoking cigarettes and being addicted to cigarettes. A lot of people know it's wrong, but they just can't help themselves in the moment. It takes more like intent to know I'm not going to use this word anymore. I'm going to express myself differently. But yeah, I thought it was really like sad that here's the original African brother coming over here pretending to be somewhat broken and like emotionally damaged. Like, because I think that's part of the Black experience is there is a lot of emotional and mental damage that was never addressed, and we were just left to our own devices to figure it out over time. And I think if you look at, I don't know what the equation would have to be, but if you took the amount of time plus like the amount of time we've been free plus the amount of resistance and total it up and look at where we are, how much progress we made in that amount of space plus that amount of resistance, I think we are like really amazing. I think, and I can only imagine what it would be like if we didn't have that resistance.
So where does the resistance come from?
Oh, resistance like Jim Crow back in the day, like segregation, redlining.
All right, yeah. So the government.
Oh yeah,
right.
The crack era.
The same government we're supposed to
support.
Stand for the flag is the same government that's oppressing.
Yes.
Like that's the issue. Like people don't see that. Like if they wanted things to change, things would change. And it's always a fight, and it's always why not to change something. We've seen, which I'm happy for. We've seen gay rights have more progress in a few years than we had for African Americans in
And I
hundreds
think
of years.
I thought about that, and then I think the reason they have more progress has to do with something Dave Chappelle said in one of his comedy specials recently, and I think it's because of the gay community has white men in it, and
Mm,
a lot of the resistance came from white men and white men making laws. So now they have these white men who are gay, and they know how to navigate these roads basically, because like Dave said, they built them, and that's why
yeah,
it's like it seems like that community changes the vocabulary. Like, still we struggle with people being disrespectful using the N word, but if you use the F word, you're canceled immediately. And it seemed like that progress came out of nowhere. Like, it just
yeah.
went 0 to 60, and it was like, whoa, they're ahead of us. Like,
But you see, like, no matter how quickly you progress, like, regression is always faster. Like, you move one step forward, and then the president and the government can rip all of those provisions that were put in place to make you feel like you were on equal footing, and it's all gone in a second, and it takes years to get back. So
yes,
within 4 years, everything that was worked for in the last eight years is gone, and then you got to start
maybe even
over.
more than 8, maybe
I know. I'm,
even,
I'm just it's just trying to, like, keep it keep it smaller to make me feel better about it,
yeah.
so I don't feel like it's so much of a deeper hole. Um,
And I don't think
but
we've even tipped the tip of the iceberg as far as how much damage was done in his 4 years, because all those judges he got elected and put on permanent, um, basically dictatorships. I really think there should be term limits on every position, but
yeah, how do we get that in that? Like, that's what it all comes down to. How do you make change in the world? Like, how are we gonna do that? I I have this, like, I get upset at our people. I'm like, are we allowed? Like, I feel like we're not allowed to better ourselves. Like, we have Oprah Winfrey, we have LeBron James, Michael Jordan, all these rich, Will Smith. I can go in and name a bunch of. I'm like, you're telling me with all the millionaires, like, why do we have to live a certain way? Like, why are those millionaires? Like, I know you earned that, right?
mhm.
But if you really want better for your people, you go out and you give the lip service of it. Like, instead of you having 4 or 5 mansions around the world and have to own everything on earth, like it's a wealth grab. Why don't you go say, all right, I'm going to buy. Like, let's go change this country. Let's change it state by state. Let's go into all the inner cities and all of the states that are messed up right now and struggling. Let's go to Chicago. Let's buy up all the property in those areas. Let's build an infrastructure for our people. All right, listen, we're gonna give the jobs to you. We're gonna make sure you get paid this much. This is how we're gonna run these businesses. Boom, build it out. Start hiring the people in those neighborhoods and teaching them how to earn for themselves. Then you got a neighborhood. You got an infrastructure built. Boom, let's go. We're gonna sell you. We're gonna sell you back this property. Here, we're going to sell you back these businesses. That's your business now. That's your business now. That's your business now. And we're going to go to the next state. Like, it's
Well,
possible. I
it,
know it's possible.
I think it
With the,
is.
with
Let me just spitball here, because I was thinking like certain celebrities, like these mega really rich people like LeBron, Oprah. Um, I think they can try to like rebuild the community, but they're there's like even the richest black people like Oprah Winfrey, her efforts can't compare to the efforts of an entire government. Like, if a government wants Chicago to be shitty, she's not rich enough to change that city by herself, because
see,
it's her money
I'm not
versus.
saying by herself. I'm not saying by herself. That's where the disconnect is. And I know you're going to say, like, if the government, you feel like If that's how we feel, then why? And there is no point in us protesting. If we got to that point, we don't feel like there's no way. Like I in my brain, I 100% feel like if you got all the richest black people in the world in this country together and said, "Hey, we're going to start an initiative," and this is where I get to the point, and I feel like they're not allowed to. It's like that you stay in your place, or we make you look like Bill Cosby. You stay in your place, or we make you look like Michael Jackson. Like whenever you try to uplift your people, you get put in that place.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the type of corruption I feel exists, because I know white money is bigger than black, because they have that generational wealth that we'll never get. So I know that oppression exists, and that's what I feel. I don't even know, like, per se, it's the government. I feel like it's that. There are a few billionaires, trillionaires.
Yeah, but those people
in the world that run the world.
Those people are like sewn into the fabric of like politics. They use
the
they're the judges, they're the prosecutors, they're the lawyers, they're the congressmen, they're the senators. They feel that way, and they're all working. Like, I won't say like they all working like together, because they may not even be aware of what they're doing. They're just like conditioned through how they were raised and what they were shown. Like, everybody has their own bubble that we live in. Like, even with social media, what you see on your Instagram is going to be different from somebody else. Their Instagram is going to look completely different as far as what's being advertised to them, what type of pages are being showed to them. So I think they're just all in this old type racist, not even knowing their racist bubble, and they're just moving towards an agenda that they think is the best agenda for them and their family. And that goes back to the division effect. Many people, and I think, let's say like LeBron, one of the reasons he will go spending every single dime he has trying to fix his community is because he wants to make sure that his family is always going to be taken care of. So that division of oneself, like one group of people from another group of people, is what keeps everybody from moving together with a certain amount of progress.
You don't think LeBron James has enough money to take care of his family for the rest of their life?
I don't think once you get to a certain point in your career and money is coming.
You get what?
Say that again?
It's greed. It's nothing but greed to me. Because it's greed, or you don't really believe in what you say.
There may be fear in there too, because once you reach a certain lifestyle, you might be afraid that you're going to lose it and
but
be
you
the
don't
cause.
have to live that. That's my issue. You don't have to. I don't. What's the necessary reason to live that type of life? Like,
well, because we're conditioned.
Why does Will Smith have to build his own little grotto home where no one can enter?
Hugh Hefner did it.
This piece of land, and his own wife didn't want it, but he did it for her. But it was really for him.
Yeah, well, people do that because they're conditioned to consume as much as possible, and that makes them feel more successful. I think there's a guy. What's his last name? Turner. He has hundreds of acres of land.
Because land is wealth. Land is wealth.
Yeah, land.
The more property you own, the wealthier.
And you think about, there are places where like these shanty towns exist, and it could be like 3 miles of metal shacks with like 10 roofs and maybe 10,000 people living in that area. And then there are certain places in the world where one person can own 500 acres of land with no people on it. So the real problem is, like you said, greed, but greed feeds a different system that we're currently participating in. So I don't want to say what it is, but it's capitalism.
Yeah.
I think capitalism is hindering people from reaching like their full potential of a society. Like I think,
Right, it's a modern day slavery for
oh yeah, I think
every the working class.
I might have a show on that one day, but I definitely think America is obsessed with slavery. And it doesn't like they never end it. They just change it a bit.
Change
I don't
the
even know if
guide.
it's just America. I think it's just humanity. Humanity is obsessed with slavery, and I think it's going to keep presenting itself over and over throughout the history of man. Like I was reading an article about Elon Musk and his plans to get to Mars and start like bringing people there. And I was like, man, they're gonna have slaves on Mars. I could see how it's gonna happen. It's gonna be the a
Like,
bunch
oh,
of
who wants
private
to come to
companies.
Mars?
Say again?
Yeah, ooh, who wants to come to Mars? Well, get you
Yeah,
a job and this and that.
yeah. You're gonna have to work your debt off because it costs X amount of money for us to send you there. But then once you start like getting into it, it's just gonna look just like how it was when America was being formed. Like there
Yeah,
was
like how
indentured
you can't get that.
service, and then they'll send the scientists first, and then they'll start with, let's say, who's going to be their enforcers, their police department, and then they'll send the workers who
I
will be in
can't say
debt.
100%. I can't say I'm 100% sure, but there won't be no
I
black
would
people
not
on
be the
Mars.
first one.
There's gonna be
I
some
don't
black
know. I
people.
would not be the millionth or 100th millionth.
Hmm.
So luckily, I won't be around for that one.
We never know, but yeah, yeah. I think there's a big problem with humanity and slavery. So I just see. I think it was in maybe it was a video game, Red Faction, where it was basically a rebellion on Mars. And it just seems like it's just the same old routine recycled over and over again. I hope it doesn't happen that way, but we'll see. I think the article was about how Elon is not going to have to follow any like guidelines or rules. And my first thought was, I guess that's okay because if you're the only person like operating on the planet, who's to say what you can or can't do? My second thought was,
So he's gonna own the planet because he's there first.
yeah, basically, you got there first, you're going to plant your flag and you're going to make the rules. He probably had changed the name if he wanted to. But then my second thought was, you didn't get there by yourself. If you took a single dollar from any government from like a tax rebate or aid, like you're not in this by yourself. Those rockets was not paid
Yeah,
all
well,
by your money.
yeah, they gotta allow him to fly the airspace, and because it's a national security
Yeah.
risk for you're gonna let this person go out in the space. They know what they're gonna do. So I don't know, but that's the problem. It's too much government control uh, when it comes to anything. Like they want to own everything, and is nature is not meant to be owned. Like I don't know.
Yeah. There's
So
supposed to be a balance.
yeah, so
And
it's crazy, man.
it is. But I enjoyed this conversation, brother.
Same, man.
I
Same.
enjoyed your
It's
insight.
been too long. Too long.
Well, hey man, I'm always around. I got a whole bunch of time now.
All right.
And I haven't been traveling up and down the roads because I don't know how people feel as far as the corona,
Yeah.
the cases getting more higher and such.
It's another touchy subject right there.
Yeah, it's a new world, man. It's changing so fast. It's weird. I swear this year it's been a lot like a roller coaster, just being scrapped in the first seat of a roller coaster, knowing you can't get out, so you're just gonna have to sit through it.
Yeah, we'll get through it. Everybody get through it together. So I have hope. Things will turn around economically. Things will turn around health wise for everyone, and we'll be on the right path sooner than later. Yeah, I think people will have to pull together, you know, to get through it. If not, then we'll be like this forever. If people don't come together and work together and come to a solution, then we're going to be yo-yoing back and forth between, you know, two different worlds. Um, and that might be the uprising fight, civil war that happens rather than a black, white, racist, non-racist civil war. You know, there might be something completely different that causes the civil war.
But you feel like there is one on the horizon, like something's close.
I don't. I think. I honestly think if Donald Trump would have won, there would have been one. I
You don't
think.
think there would be one now? Because I feel like his
I,
supporters are really agitated.
yeah.
They're embarrassed. They're angry, and this guy represents the closest thing to the like notion or the idea that the South was going to rise again. Like this was
Well,
their guy, and I feel
listen.
like he's about to go away. I don't know how they're going to feel about letting him go.
Politic politicians are politicians. You know, and
But he wasn't really a
never
politician.
and this, but he was in the political world, and so he played the political game, and he did what he felt he had to. Like, I'm not excusing what he did. I'm not excusing what he said. Um, but I just feel like all politics will say and do whatever they need to say and do to get elected, and like even his other constituents, the other Republicans, I don't. Once he's gone, I don't feel like they will continue um, this craziness because they know like they did what they had to do in order to stay in office at the time, and and that's what they said. Like if you were able to talk to them privately, they always say like, "Listen, I would vote for this, but if I do that, I'm not getting reelected." And that's what would bring us back to your original comment about uh, term limits, and that's important because they know like this is a career thing for them. If if I don't stay with my party, I'm not going to have much of a career. I'm not going to be able to enjoy myself in my career. But if you know we have those term limits set, then people can go in and say, "Listen, I'm going to go in and I'm going to vote change in the best way for the people, and I'm going to go in and do my job. And then when I'm done, someone else can come in and do the same." You know, we got to figure out a balance. We got to figure out how to change. Like we're not living in the same time as this country was founded. So we got to figure out, is the electoral college what we need
I
or
don't think
not?
we do. I think that needs to
We
be taken out.
and yeah, it's outdated to most. I'm like, if
Well, I saw a video that stated that the reason it existed was to give southern states
more,
um, more power, but it was based off of the whole three-fifths a
yeah,
person thing.
it was because they didn't give slaves the right to vote, so they were voting for slaves,
So that's basically like,
basically.
why are we still operating
Eh,
our country off of a slave type system?
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So, do we have what a two-party system when our forefathers didn't want that? And George Washington warned against partisan fighting. Like these are these are the issues. Like we ignore some history and then we fight to death for some other history, instead of like taking it all in and saying, all right, they lived in this time and these were their situation. We live in this time. We need to adapt and change and grow. Um, and we're one of the only countries that don't do it. Other democracies that have started after us, they've adapted, adapted democracy and made it work for their country in the time we're living now.
Mm.
And until we get to that point, then we're going to have these battles and division. And I don't believe it. Political systems should exist. I don't believe like political parties should exist. I don't believe that. I don't believe. I
What would it look
believe
like without the political parties?
um, you you should primaries. You can vote for like there's so many different ways you can do that. All right, primaries you can vote for anyone. All right, you want to vote for Republican, you want to vote for uh, Democrat or whatever, or you can change it up where like, oh, I'm gonna vote for. We got 5 people running for president. That's our cap. I don't know how we get to that cap or 6 people running for president. How do we nominate these 6? I don't know. Maybe there's a primary where you can vote for your favorite 3 candidates in each state. I don't know. or everybody in primaries vote the same times, and it's not like my vote doesn't matter in primaries
I
because
feel like
you
that's a
already picked the
step.
president. So like there's so many different changes or ranking your presidential order. So like more research has to go into it. How can I rank these presidential nominees to benefit my nominee? So I'm gonna put Bernie Sanders one. I'm gonna put Biden two. I'm gonna put Trump all the way at the bottom. I'm gonna put Joe Jurgensen three. So like you got to think about how you're gonna rank them because they get a point system, and then number one and number two, that's your president and that's your vice president. So you can have a Republican and an independent. You can have an independent and a Democrat. You can have all sorts of different combinations end up as your president and vice president. And that way you have people with different mindsets that have to work together to to work for the people.
Hmm.
So like, but we'll never make a change that drastic because they wouldn't know how to control it. They would have to rework. Well, how do we control that voting system? Just the same way they do with gerrymandering, which I
Yeah,
just
and
learned exactly how that worked.
with them
I'm
redrawing
like,
districts in order to get as many.
yeah, man, that's crazy.
And if we got rid of the electoral college, they wouldn't have to do that.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
we
That's true.
should go by popular vote. I think there should be term limits for all positions in government. Um, as far as the primaries, I agree that everybody should be able to vote on the same day. I didn't like that by the time the primaries got to New Jersey, there was only two people on the ballot, Biden and Sanders had already dropped out a week before.
Well, that shows you just how much our vote, like the importance. They go to the states that are the swing states first because they
You
want to
get
show
rid
like
of that
this person can win
electoral.
those states, this person can win that state. This one, like, you got to get rid of the popular vote, primary vote every day, the same day, and then that's it. And then the new way to vote, you get, it's so many drastic changes. We're gonna have election month, so you can vote over the course of the month.
I think also there should be caps on how much you can spend on advertisement for the particular campaign, because super rich people, like, I didn't like having to vote for Murphy. He's doing a good job, I guess, but I just didn't like the idea that the only reason we know of him is because he outspent all the other candidates, and it was because we known his name because he was rich. I don't think just because you're rich means you're the best leader for the position, because you could be rich for a bunch of reasons.
Very, very cool. All right, man. Let's get to it and invite me back. We'll talk about some other things, man. We can talk. You know how we talk,
Yeah,
so we can go all day.
these would be therapeutic.
Definitely, definitely.
All right, DC, I appreciate you joining me on the show. I will let you know when it's up. And again, just thanks for being a part of the I Wish I Started Sooner podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. And proud of you, brother. Keep pushing and pushing towards your dreams, because this is just uh, the first step towards them. So,
All right. Thank you, bro.
all right, peace out.
One.
Bye.